The palace has finally drawn a hard line. After years of whispers, accusations, and staged interviews, the monarchy itself has decided it's had enough of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. One brutal insider leak has ripped away the last strands of connection, leaving the Sussexes adrift and humiliated. When the very institution that raised you shuts the gates, there's no coming back. The revelations didn't come from tabloids or anonymous gossip. They came from within the royal circle itself, voices once sworn to protect the crown's dignity. Private communications, staff memos, and behind-the-scenes accounts spilled into daylight. And unlike speculative headlines, these details had the weight of credibility. What emerged was a picture of manipulation and calculated storytelling. The insider claimed Meghan often rehearsed emotional anecdotes before public appearances, testing which lines would trigger maximum sympathy. Meetings that should have been about family reconciliation reportedly turned into strategy sessions for media leverage. The palace was left staring at receipts it could no longer ignore. Even more shocking was the timing of the leak. It coincided with Meghan preparing to relaunch her public image with a new blog project and a series of glossy media photos. Instead of support, she was met with betrayal from the very staff who once shielded her. The message was clear. The silence of insiders had ended. The palace's reaction was swift and uncompromising. Officials quietly confirmed that all informal ties with the Sussexes were severed. Communication channels once left open out of courtesy were closed overnight. Meghan and Harry were not just on the outside, they were cut off entirely. What made this leak so devastating was its tone. It wasn't sensational tabloid drama. It was calm, detailed, and brutally factual. Staff described how Meghan pushed for more control over narratives, how Harry seemed sidelined, and how trust eroded behind palace walls. Cold precision made the revelations impossible to dismiss. And once that precision hit the press, the story spread like wildfire. Networks picked up on the inside betrayal angle, branding it as the most serious rupture since the abdication crisis. Suddenly, Meghan and Harry's narrative wasn't about survival anymore. It was about exposure. The public reaction revealed something deeper. For years, critics had accused the Sussexes of exaggeration, but defenders always insisted it was bias. Now, with palace insiders providing receipts, that defense collapsed. It's one thing to fight tabloids. It's another to fight the people who lived inside your own home. Perhaps the sharpest blow was the implication that even Meghan's allies had grown weary. The leak suggested frustration among senior staff who felt used as pawns in a media war. Their decision to finally speak wasn't driven by malice, but by exhaustion. And when loyalty turns to fatigue, the fallout is irreversible. This was the turning point. The fairy tale of independence and healing shattered against the reality of manipulation and mistrust. And at the heart of it all stood the palace, finally willing to let the Sussexes fall without a safety net. For Meghan, the timing couldn't have been worse. Just as she was carefully rolling out her polished new lifestyle brand, the insider leaks stripped away the glossy veneer. Suddenly, instead of headlines about empowerment, the news cycle was dominated by whispers of manipulation and staged vulnerability. What cut deepest was the suggestion that Meghan's public authenticity was a performance. Emails and private notes reportedly showed her rehearsing personal moments before interviews. For a woman who built her brand on relatability, the exposure was brutal. Even her Hollywood allies began hesitating. PR strategists warned that Meghan's image had crossed from aspirational to artificial, a fatal shift in an industry obsessed with authenticity. Once the illusion cracks, it doesn't just chip away, it shatters. The palace's silence only amplified the humiliation. By cutting off ties, they made it clear Meghan was no longer their problem, leaving her fully exposed to the public's scrutiny. To be rejected by the institution she once accused of cruelty was the cruelest twist of all. And the reaction wasn't confined to Britain. American media, once sympathetic to her struggles, picked up the story with fascination. Meghan wasn't just the Duchess at odds with tradition anymore. She was the woman whose carefully staged empire was crumbling in real time. If Meghan's downfall was humiliation, Harry's was helplessness. Insiders described him as increasingly isolated, caught between loyalty to his wife and the reality of being permanently cut off from the family he once called home. His voice, once central in interviews, has now grown quiet. Reports claim Harry has reached out to old friends in the UK, but the reception has been frosty. Without the palace's blessing, doors that were once open remain firmly closed. For a man who gave up everything in the name of independence, the silence must feel like exile. What makes it worse is the perception. In media coverage of the insider leak, Meghan is portrayed as the strategist, while Harry appears as a bystander. He is no longer the rebellious prince. He is the sidelined husband. Even projects tied to his personal passions, like veterans' charities, have started to lose momentum. Donors and sponsors worry about associating with a figure whose credibility seems in free fall. Harry's legacy, once grounded in service and duty, is now overshadowed by the chaos of Montecito. And perhaps the cruelest irony? The very institution he sought to escape still defines him. Stripped of its support, he is not liberated. He is powerless. The palace's response was quiet but lethal. No official statements, no fiery denials, just a clean, deliberate cut that left no room for reconciliation. Insiders called it the final break, a message that Harry and Meghan were no longer part of the inner circle in any capacity. Royal experts noted the absence of Harry and Meghan from key royal briefings and private invitations. These exclusions weren't accidental. They were a deliberate signal that the couple's ties to the monarchy had been officially severed. It wasn't a rift anymore. It was a divorce. What shocked observers most was the swiftness of the separation. Only months ago, there had been quiet talks about potential cooperation for certain charitable events. Now those talks are dead, replaced by a wall of silence. Even extended family members seem to fall in line. Cousins who once maintained polite contact reportedly withdrew, afraid of being tainted by the ongoing leaks. When the palace pulls back, it's not just protocol, it's survival. The symbolism of the severed bonds hit harder than any headline. For centuries, royal ties were considered unbreakable, no matter the scandal. But for Harry and Meghan, the cord was cut, and the message was brutal. You are on your own. The media wasted no time amplifying the fallout. Tabloids in London ran front-page spreads about betrayal, while American outlets framed the story as a collapse of credibility. Suddenly, Meghan and Harry weren't the couple breaking free. They were the couple being abandoned. Social media turned even harsher. Hashtags like #RoyalCutoff and #PalaceKnows all trended for days, fueled by viral memes portraying Meghan as the manipulator and Harry as the pawn. When the internet turns your downfall into entertainment, the damage is almost irreversible. Even traditional allies in the press grew cautious. Journalists who once defended Meghan's struggles now questioned the inconsistencies in her narrative. The leaks had planted doubt, and doubt is poison when your entire brand rests on trust. Public sympathy shifted quickly. Instead of admiration for their independence, audiences began to view the Sussexes as reckless and opportunistic. In the court of public opinion, perception isn't just everything. It's the only thing. And with every passing headline, one truth became harder to ignore. Meghan and Harry had lost control of their story. The narrative no longer belonged to them. It belonged to the world dissecting them in real time. Hollywood had once embraced Meghan and Harry as royalty-turned celebrities. Red carpets, elite invitations, and multi-million-dollar deals painted them as untouchable. But in the wake of the insider leak, the shine began to fade. Studios and sponsors grew nervous. Executives don't like unpredictability. and the Sussex brand suddenly looked like a liability. A partner who can't guarantee stability is one who risks millions. Netflix, Spotify, and other media giants reportedly began re-evaluating future collaborations. Projects once heralded as groundbreaking were quietly shelved or minimized in scope. In Hollywood, hesitation is the first step toward rejection. Even Meghan's dream of building a lifestyle empire hit turbulence. Lifestyle brands rely on aspirational credibility, and when that credibility is questioned, the brand collapses. Insiders whispered that potential investors were already backing out. The irony couldn't be missed. Meghan and Harry had left the palace seeking independence and influence in Hollywood. Now Hollywood itself was closing its doors, leaving them adrift in a world that once courted their every move. As the fallout deepened, Harry seemed increasingly desperate to regain footing. Reports suggested he made a quiet trip back to the UK, not for family reconciliation, but to consult legal and PR advisors. The symbolism of that visit spoke louder than words. Sources close to the royals claimed Harry sought reassurances but found none. Without the palace's support, he was navigating a storm without a compass. Even longtime friends reportedly kept their distance, wary of being dragged into the drama. Behind closed doors, Harry pushed for new initiatives to prove his independence. Charitable appearances, public statements, even whispers of another documentary were floated as options. But none of it stuck. It all looked like scrambling, not strategy. Observers noted how stark Harry's image had become. Once the bold prince who walked away for love, he was now painted as a powerless man, constantly reacting instead of leading. The more he tried to step forward, the further behind he seemed to fall. And with Meghan still dominating the spotlight, Harry's desperation only highlighted the imbalance. What began as a joint journey of independence had turned into a painful portrait of a prince without a kingdom and a man without control. In the end, the palace didn't need to issue fiery press releases or public condemnations. Their silence, paired with decisive distance, said everything. For Harry and Meghan, the message was crystal clear. The bridge had burned beyond repair. What makes this moment so devastating is its permanence. Scandals come and go, but a royal severance is rare, and it rarely heals. Once you're cut off, you're no longer protected, and in the ruthless world of monarchy and media, protection is everything. The insider leak didn't just damage their brand, it exposed the fragility of their entire narrative. The carefully curated image of resilience, independence, and authenticity crumbled under the weight of doubt. Receipts don't lie, and the public has already chosen sides. For Meghan, the humiliation wasn't just about lost deals or fading influence. It was about being publicly abandoned by the very institution she tried to escape, but also sought validation from. For Harry, it was about realizing that stepping away left him powerless when the tide turned. The world now watches the Sussexes with a different lens. They are no longer the rebels carving out a new path. They are the cautionary tale of how quickly power, sympathy, and influence can evaporate. One leak, one betrayal, and the empire they built on storytelling collapsed. The reckoning is brutal, but undeniable. Meghan and Harry once believed they could control their own narrative forever. But in this game, the one rule they forgot is the harshest. When you lose the palace, you lose everything.